Okay, welcome to part 2 of the Van Gogh sphere. So I did a layer with these colors. There's like a couple colors in between. So I really layered on. And now I need to perfect the values that go with the image. So I'm going to start out with some darks. So I think I need to bring back the dark and then we'll lighten the light. So I'm going to actually go in with like the straight up dark blue without mixing it. And that counts as a color, also counts as a layer. And I'm really going to, so I'm going to take a little puddle. That way I can add water if I need to. Twist my brush. And so anywhere where it looks kind of blobby, I'm going to lay a layer in between. Kind of redefining my core shadow. And adding another layer for variety. And I'm gonna have to go back in between that one a little bit. But I'm gonna fade it out. So I'm pressing, I'm using less pressure. Okay. Then I'm gonna go a little bit closer to the edge, like I'm looking at that top edge, how it's really dark. Closer to the edge. All right, then, and I'll do a little bit more with that with another color, but I do want to fade that one out. Better. Okay, so now I'm going to do the cast shadow underneath. So I am going to do little dash lines right along the reflected light edge to clean up that edge at the bottom a little. So it's all about, like, if there looks like it's blobs, like put a little dash line in between the two parts that look like a blob. Like in here, I feel like I need to redefine my movement. And I'm going to fade out a little. Okay, stuff like that needs a little bit of work, but we'll come back with another layer. All right, then I'm going to add some, so let me scoop some more out. And I'm going to add a little bit of water to my brush, swirl it in my puddle. Okay, taking a look at my image, and come back in and I'm really looking for areas that look like blobs. Like I have too much of one color, or I have two little dash lines that are next to each other of the same color, or like that dash line was really thick. Kind of fade that in a little. Up at the top just slightly. Okay, over on this side. Definitely, because it's darker. Over on this side. Sorry if you couldn't see that. Okay. Now I'm going to add another layer to my very light parts, and I'm almost going to use straight up white. So I'm going to rinse out this brush. Actually, I'm going to get my small brush, scoop out some of my white. And I'm just going to take a little tiny piece of that color, swirl it in. So it's not quite white, but pretty much almost white. Take a little bit of water on my brush, swirl that into my puddle. I'm going to rinse out that brush. it off. Okay, tiny brush. I'm gonna clean that up a little bit. And by the way, I did take my tiny brush to the sink and I used soap and water to clean it. About every 45 minutes or so, I try to do that. Okay, now I need to brighten my highlights and then I can go back in and fade back out. So this is near white and I really want to get like that motion. Of the swirl to show. So again, I'm going over areas where it looks like I have too much of one color, or like my brush stroke was a little thick. Okay, so I am looking at how it is lighter along this edge. So I'm gonna layer. I'm probably going to go back in with one more really light color, probably like a super light blue again, or maybe actually I'm going to do a really light green. So I am putting these pretty close together because this area is really light. It's a highlight. And I'm kind of going on top of some of the thicker little dash lines. And nowhere did I use black. So for these practices, we're going to try not to use black. Some of the purples you'll have to kind of darken with black, but that's not really what I'm using. Okay, and I'm kind of squinting my eyes and making them fuzzy. Okay, so along here, I feel like I need to fade it out a little bit more. It does kind of look like it just stops. Because I feel like I would do one more color of a lighter value there. All right, so then I'm looking at the surface and how like this whole area needs to be a lot lighter. If I look at the side of the sphere, I look at how this, hold on, let me move my paper towel. This side is slightly darker and then the surface is lighter. So I'm comparing these two values next to each other. So turn your arm or your painting so it's comfortable. And I'm gonna go right up to that edge. And then I'm also trying to clean up the edge when I do that a little. And then I'm noticing how there's like a highlight between. And I'm also noticing how it's lighter right in front of that cast shadow. So I'm kind of redefining it. And then I'm going to try to just fade out a little. Let's see, maybe a little bit more. And I'm just using what's on my brush. I'm not really getting more because I want these fine, tiny little dash lines. Okay, so over on this side, in that little corner, it is lighter than the sphere that it's next to. I'm going to go right up to the edge. I feel like I got a little too light, so I'll probably... Well, we're going to go back with some of the original color anyway. It's part of refining. Okay, so let me lighten up this area. And at this point, I am like looking for blobs of color that don't necessarily look like a line or need to be thinner. I'm going to get a little water on my brush. Okay, I'm just comparing to my image. Still feel like in here it needs to be lighter. which I'm going to take a light blue on the sphere anyway, so I'll probably add a little bit more. So I don't want to add too much. Okay. Along that edge. Okay. All right, then with that same blob, I have this like teal color. I'm just gonna scoop that up and add it to my blob already there. Add a little bit of water on my brush, swirl it in. So you really aren't using like that much paint, especially if you kind of reuse your blobs of color. So what color is this? Okay, it's light blue. But I feel like this is a good light color to kind of fade out because it's not as bright as I need it. And then we'll probably touch a couple like straight up white and super dark blue. I'm just checking my edges as well. Do I have any blobs of color along the edge? How far over does the light value come? I feel like it's kind of blobby light down here, so I'm going to put some light blue in between. Okay. So over here where I got fairly light, what I'm going to do is come back with the original color. So the color that I painted the surface with originally, and I'm going to add that color back in. So I'm also going to do that in the sphere. I'm going to do it in the background as well. So, oh, that's not my original color. Oops. Hold on just a second. And I'm going to go back, kind of put back in some of those medium values with the original colors that we used for the background. So I'm going to put some of those back in, especially in the areas where I got too light. And I'm also trying to blend that under layer with the top layer a little bit. Just a little, because I don't want to darken it too much. I'm actually going to add some of this, like this cast shadow needs some work. I should have just done the direction of the ground, which I'm going to go back and do some dark values in there too. Okay, so in the sphere, especially in the midtones, I'm going to add that same, this is just the straight up like light blue out of the container. It's in my tray, in my palette. And do some reflective light. I feel like that edge needs to get cleaned up. Okay, so I lightened the reflective light area. I'm going to add some of that into the background. And so remember, like add a little bit and then look from far away. And add a little bit. And while I was working, I'd add one color, like, you know, more in the area that I needed it according to the value. And then I'd add a couple strokes like all over the place for visual balance. And while you have that color on your brush, might as well use it. The background's fading in. I still think I need to go a little bit lighter in the background. Pardon my phone. It's weird. It's the first time it's rang all day. She like rings off the hook. Oh, you guys get music. Okay, let me see. Can I fade up? I'm just gonna add a little bit in the core shadow. And I'm gonna go back over that core shadow anyway. Okay, so I'm gonna mix up, I don't know what I wanna use. Light blue, I thought. Actually, I'm gonna go in with some white. I wanna lighten the sphere part. I feel like the ground is light enough, but I'm gonna use some straight up white. To brighten, especially the highlight on the sphere, because it's the lightest part of the whole image. So you would probably use, and usually white's like my last layer, but I want to see like how much more I can adjust, or how much more is needed to adjust. So you build up to your light parts. Kind of squinting my eyes, making it fuzzy. Kind of checking my contrast. Okay, maybe like a little bit. I'm just pretty much using what's on my brush just to brighten the surface a little. Just gonna do a little bit more white. I'm gonna kind of a little bit. Okay. All right. So now I feel like the darker values need some refining and a little bit more variety. So I have this dark, I think this was the background color originally. So I'm going to come back in with some of my original colors. So I'm going to do that blob, water on my brush, swirl it all around, twist my brush, add back in these dark values. And then I'd probably come back again with that original really dark blue. Oh, I feel like this one can fade a little. I'm going to add a little into my cast shadow. And I'm going to add a little fading out. Okay, I feel like right here it looks awkward. Okay, it's a little bit better. All right, background. More where the darker parts are. And to make some of those blobs look like lines. Dude, I have tons of layers in this cast shadow and you just cannot see it. Maybe if I add a little bit, let me take this color. Let's mix those, what happens? Yeah, like a dark green, okay. Okay, then I feel feel like my highlight is good on the sphere, and I'm gonna take some of that. Actually, I really do like this. Scoop some of this up. Swirl that together. A little bit of water. And I'm gonna take some of this yellow too. Actually, let's just swirl these together. Okay, that's a nice medium. That's how you get lots of variety of analogous color, like with very little effort, is you just keep using your same puddles, and I'm not really washing out my brush per se. Add some reflective light. Let's see, what color does this look like back here? Okay, it's a little bit lighter. I was trying to lighten the background, but I feel like I don't want to make it much lighter because it does need to be darker than the sphere. That's a little bit lighter. Okay, now I'm going to go back with my core shadow and cast shadow and background. Sorry, let me open up my little brush. So again, I'm going to take that color, add a little bit of water, go over it. Okay, so I feel like that's not as dark, and I'm trying to get some of those green blobs to blend or fade a little bit better. And I'm going to add some in the cast shadow. Okay, now I feel like I need to take a medium along the edge of the highlight and the core shadow. So I did not rinse out my brush. I'm just going to pick up one of my medium colors. And I'm going to add, I'm going to mix that in with my blue. Try to get that edge to blend in a little bit better. And I don't want to mess up my highlight too much, but I'll add a couple. Okay, that looks a little bit better. Now I still think I need the reflected light area to be a little bit lighter, so I don't think I ever put this color down there. Add a little bit of water to that. If it gets sticky, then it's just drying too much, and you might have to just make a new puddle. How does that look? Okay, that's looking a little bit better. Now I need to bring back the dark. So I'm going to do another layer of that darkest blue. And I'm being a little specific about where I put it. I'm trying to like go on top of some of the blobs of lighter values. Okay, cast shadow as well. edge. Let's see. Okay. A little bit over here. Okay, now I'm going to squint my eyes, make them fuzzy, and I'm totally comparing like with my sphere. So I'm squinting my eyes, making them both fuzzy. Well, actually I could do it this way so you could see it. Like comparing. I can always make things better, but I feel like that's a pretty good example. The only thing I would say, like for me, I would suggest is like in here, like some medium. Like kind of come back and put little dash lines between. Looks kind of blobby in there, but I don't want to make it much darker. Of course, the more you add, the better it looks. Part of painting is knowing when to stop. The other thing I'm going to do, I'm going to go a little bit lighter on this side because I feel like I'm missing the edge. So, let's blend something that I already have. How much lighter is that? Okay, that's not drastically lighter. Does that help? Okay, that helps a little bit. Okay, that helps that edge. So I'm also looking for contrast between the edges to get your different areas to visually separate. I think I'm going to add just a couple pops of that color over here as well. Maybe a few up top. And then I usually just kind of add a little bit of whatever color I had in the areas that are similar value. Okay, I can do a couple over here. Some in between my little blobs of white. Okay, I would say the Van Gogh is finished. And that is probably one of the longer ones. Pointillism will go a little bit faster, but we'll spend more time refining. So the layering goes a little bit faster. But it always looks really cool when you're done. So take your time, do it well. That way you have a really good indication of which one will work out best for your final. All right, I'll see you in the next video, which is pointillism.